Welcome to day 3 of the 4th online Kirloskar Vasundhara Ramnadi festival. After the 2 days of the festival that we have witnessed, I'm sure all of us are truly inspired by the indomitable spirit of the men and women working to solve water problems all over the country. On our third day, we will look at the school level initiatives to educate and include children in this important public movement. We also look at the many ecological solutions to ease the burden on rivers, along with other important topics like rainwater harvesting, decentralized wastewater recycling, zero waste goals, and more. What exactly does ecological restoration mean for water bodies? Dr. Gurudas Nulkar talks about this strategy. Gurudas is a teacher, prolific author, and researcher. He has a PhD in environmental management in industrial ecosystems. He is the director of the Center for Sustainable Development, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. He is also on the board of trustees of Ecological Society. Gurudas has published 4 books, several research papers, and articles on issues related to sustainable development.
Hello and welcome to the 2024 edition of the Ramnadi Online Film Festival. Those of you who have followed the Ramnadi Restoration Mission will probably know some of the things that we did in the last 2 years. The Khatpewadi Lake, which is very near at the foothill of the source region of the Ramnadi, we have done 3 things which have resulted in a significant difference in the water quality. The first is around the lake, that the perimeter of the lake, we did a plantation of over 350 native trees, and especially trees which grow around water bodies. And for the last 2 years, these trees are growing very well. The second thing which we did before the plantation was the desilting operation, where we removed all the silt which has been collected right from 1972, because the Khatpewadi barrage was built in 1972 during the droughts. So it needed desiltation, and therefore it increased the storage capacity of Khatpewadi Lake. And the third important thing that we did, which was essentially a result of a competition that we floated in the colleges of Pune, was the floating beds that we introduced in Khatpewadi. Now these are very simple, extremely low cost beds which have got aquatic floating plants which take up the polluted water and remove some of the contaminants. So these need to be regularly, periodically removed and changed. So this Khatpewadi floating bed project became so successful that it was introduced by several city corporations as well as municipal councils in the Maji Vasundhara Abhiyan. These interventions at Khatpewadi Lake results in significantly improved water quality, which is important for aquatic life to come back. The second set of interventions that we did were at Someshwar Wadi Temple. As you would probably know, the Someshwar Wadi Temple is a very old temple and a cultural heritage located on the banks of the Ramnadi. But this temple is in the city limits. There is a kunda there, and there is a lot of organic matter which enters the river before this kunda and at this kunda. So we created a reed bed in this kunda, which is essentially a collection of various reeds, grasses, aquatic plants. As the polluted water flows through the reed bed root system, some of the contaminants are removed and it gets rejuvenated. How did we check if the water is really rejuvenated after the reed bed? Very simple. We looked at the dissolved oxygen measurements. Before the reed bed was made, the dissolved oxygen at Someshwar Wadi was nearly 4 ppm, which is 4 parts per million. After the reed beds were introduced, it has risen to around 7 parts per million. Of course, it fluctuates throughout the year, but on an average, you could say it's between 6 to 7 parts per million, which is very good considering the fact that the reed bed is a very low cost nature based solution. So these are the two major structural interventions which we have done in the Ramnadi. But there are several other interventions that we did, and they were mainly in terms of building awareness and connection between humans and the Ramnadi. So we have inducted 35 more schools in the Ramnadi restoration project and created awareness in those schools. We estimate that through these 35 schools, we have probably reached around 60 to 65,000 families, which is a very good impact already, because these families are now connected with the Ramnadi and they know what this restoration project is all about. Going forward, this year we have several activities lined up, especially on the Manas Lake, which is downstream of Khatpewadi Lake, and the Pashan Lake, which is downstream of Manas Lake. As you probably know, the Pashan Lake is a very heavily polluted lake, and some parts are at the stage of eutrophication. There's a lot of water hyacinth on it, so on and so forth. So we'll start with the usual. We'll start first with the cleanup drives, then do the desilting. We'll look at invasive management. There are a lot of invasive plants like Eupatorium, lantana, which are growing around Manas Lake as well as Pashan Lake. So we have to manage these invasive biologicals and we have to replace them with native plants and shrubs. We're going to do that this year. So those of you who are interested in working on this project, do connect with us and come with your friends for a wonderful experience of river restoration.
The more a child learns about nature, the role of rivers, and the do's and don'ts to improve river health, the more the river is likely to become a part of their consciousness and action. Ramnadi Rejuvenation Mission school programs tap into this simple understanding, which was at the root of the letter writing, drawing, and waste to wealth competitions, followed by teachers' training programs, exhibitions, and prize distribution conducted in different schools in Pune. Let us get inspired by these young friends who show us the way forward for the rivers of Pune.
रामनदी पुनरुज्जीवन अभियान म्हणजे इंग्रजीत रिस्टोरेशन मिशन हे गेले 4 वर्ष सातत्याने चालू आहे. रामनदीच्या काठावरच्या एकूण 25 शाळा एका प्रकारे दत्तक घेतल्या, त्यातल्या 12 शाळा या पुणे कॉर्पोरेशनच्या आहेत. आपल्याला छोटे छोटे काही उपक्रम आहेत, पण त्याच्याद्वारे रामनदी आपल्याला स्वच्छ ठेवायची आहे आणि कायमस्वरूपी आपल्याला वर्षभर जो उपक्रम राबवायचा आहे तो प्लास्टिक मुक्त रामनदी. प्रत्येक महिन्यातनं 2 वेळा त्या दिवशी मुलांना प्लास्टिकचा कचरा घरातला किंवा आजूबाजूचा एका पिशवीत घालून त्यांनी आणायचा आणि आमचं वाहन तुमच्या शाळेमध्ये येईल आणि ते सगळं प्लास्टिक घेऊन जाईल.
जेव्हा तुम्ही प्लास्टिक घरनं आणाल ते रिसायकलिंगला जाईल आणि त्यातनं काय वस्तू तयार होतात हे तुम्ही जेव्हा पाहाल तेव्हा निश्चितच ते प्रोत्साहन तुम्हाला मिळणार आहे की आयुष्यभर आपण प्लास्टिकचा वापर हा सदुपयोग म्हणून करणार आहोत, दुरुपयोग म्हणून नाही, आणि प्लास्टिकच्या कचऱ्याचं आपण व्यवस्थापन करणार आहोत.
रामनदीमध्ये जवळजवळ 3 ते 4 लाख लोक राहतात. आता ह्या प्रत्येक नागरिकाला कळलं की आपण प्रयोजन करू नये, आपल्या घरातला कचरा बाहेर टाकू नये किंवा घरातलं सांडपाणी कसं शुद्ध व्हावं ही जागृती करायची असेल तर 3-4 लोकांपर्यंत पोहोचलं पाहिजे. पैकी एक मार्ग म्हणजे शाळेतल्या मुलांपर्यंत आधी पोहोचायचं आणि म्हणून आपण रामनदी खोऱ्यातील 25 शाळांमध्ये हा जागृतीचा कार्यक्रम सुरू केलेला आहे. आता ह्या कार्यक्रमांतर्गत आमचा असा उद्देश होता की आधी मुलांमध्ये जागृती करूया, नंतर ते मुलं पालकापर्यंत जातील, मग पालकच जागृत होतील आणि वेळ पडल्यास वर्षातनं 1-2दा या शाळांमध्ये पालकांची एक मीटिंग घ्यायची. पहिल्यांदा आम्ही असं केलं की रामनदी ओळख असं एक ऑडिओ व्हिज्युअल एक लेक्चर आम्ही प्रत्येक शाळेत जाऊन दिलं मुलांना. मग ते लेक्चरचा सुद्धा खूप मुलावर परिणाम झाला. मुलं त्या रामनदीला चांगली ओळखायला लागली आणि त्यानंतर मात्र ह्या ज्या 4 स्पर्धा घेतलेल्या आहेत, निबंध स्पर्धा, चित्रकला स्पर्धा, टाकाऊ तो टिकाऊ, अशा काही 4 स्पर्धा घेतल्या आणि मी सर्व शिक्षक वर्गाचं नंतर ह्या मुलांचं खरंच कौतुक करतो की थोडाफार सक्सेस स्टोरी समजायचं म्हटलं तर जी रामनदी काही वर्षापूर्वी मुलांना माहीत नव्हती ते आता बहुतेक मुलांना माहीत झालेली आहे.
रामनदीत खूप सारा कचरा आहे जे की आपणच टाकतोय आणि ते आपल्याला थांबवलं पाहिजे, कारण की ते कचऱ्यामुळं मेन तर जे प्राणी राहतात ना ते मरू शकतात.
आपल्या घरातलं सांडपाणी रामनदीत मिसळायला नाही पाहिजे. रामनदी स्वच्छ करण्यासाठी मी खूप प्रयत्न करेल.
रामनदी खराब झालेली आहे, तर तिला वाचवण्याचं काम कसं करायचं आणि मुलांचं ॲक्च्युली त्याच्यामध्ये रोल काय आहे, कारण हीच मुलं पुढे जाऊन समाजामध्ये सुजाण नागरिक होणार आहेत आणि त्यांच्याकडूनच अपेक्षा आहे की ही नदी वाचवणं.
जीवनासाठी अत्यंत आवश्यक गोष्टी म्हणजे अन्न, पाणी, हवा. प्रत्येक गाव हे कुठल्या ना कुठल्या तरी नदीच्या काठी वसलेले असते. रामनदी ही मुळा नदीची अत्यंत महत्त्वाची उपनदी. पुण्याच्या वायव्य दिशेला खाटपेवाडी, मुकाईवाडी, वरपेवाडीच्या मागे जसरेश्वर व सह्याद्रीच्या डोंगराळ रांगातून ती उगम पावते. रामनदीवर एकूण 4 तलाव आहेत. खाटपेवाडी तलाव, छत्रपती शिवाजी महाराज तलाव म्हणजेच मानस लेक, चौधे तलाव आणि पाषाण तलाव. माझी शाळा रामनदीच्या खोऱ्यात आहे व मी रामनदीच्या खोऱ्यात राहते, पण तिची अवस्था आता खूप खराब आहे. लोक तिथं कचरा, घरातील सांडपाणी टाकतात. रामनदी घाण करण्यामध्ये कुठे ना कुठेतरी आपण सुद्धा कारणीभूत आहोत. आता 3 ते 4 लाख लोक राहतात म्हणल्यावर कचरा होणारच. तर त्या लोकांनी जे मैला पाणी हे रामनदीमध्ये त्याचे चंब सोडलेले आहेत. कोणी कचरा टाकतं, ओला कचरा, सुका कचरा हा घंटा गाडीलाच द्यायला पाहिजे, ते न करता ते रामनदीमध्ये टाकतात. आपल्या घरातलं सांडपाणी शुद्धीकरण केंद्रातच गेलं पाहिजे आणि पूजेचं सामान वगैरे ते टाकलं नाही पाहिजे आणि कचरा नाही केला पाहिजे. एका अप्रतिम नैसर्गिक ठेव्याला कसे होत्याचे नव्हते करतात त्याचे तंतोतंत उदाहरण म्हणजे रामनदी. आधी 70% मासे होते, पण आता फक्त 2% का राहिले याचा तुम्ही कधी विचार केला का?
Is it good that if our river mother is getting dirty, she also need help from we children? So that's why we have to save our Ramnadi.
रामनदी रिस्टोरेशन मिशनच्या वतीने शाळेत वेगवेगळे वर्षभर विविध कार्यक्रम राबवले जातात आणि ह्या कार्यक्रमातून मुलांना चांगली माहिती मिळते. तसेच मुलांच्या स्पर्धा घेतल्या जातात, त्यातनं मुलांना बक्षिसे दिली जातात आणि त्यामुळे त्या मुलांना त्याचा चांगला फायदा होतो.
नदी कशी स्वच्छ ठेवता येईल मुलांच्या माध्यमातून, तर काय त्यासाठी आधी आपण निबंध स्पर्धा भरवल्या, मग तुम्हाला नदीची जाणीव करून दिली, नदीबद्दल तुमच्या मनामध्ये एक छान प्रेम निर्माण करून दिलं, नदीचं महत्त्व काय आहे हे तुम्हाला पटवून दिलं, मग तुम्ही नदीची चित्र काढली. आता प्रत्यक्ष ती नदी कशी स्वच्छ असावी तुम्ही पालकांना सांगितलं की नाही आपल्याला ही नदी स्वच्छ ठेवायची आहे, येणाऱ्या जाणाऱ्यांना सांगितलं ही नदी आपल्याला स्वच्छ ठेवायची आहे, तर सगळे ऐकतात. कारण का, लहान मुलांचं सगळे ऐकतात.
Parineeta Dandekar, a passionate champion of river rejuvenation, has extensively studied many such projects in Europe and the US. She says that river experts who understand the various aspects of a river must be involved while making policy decisions. According to her, river restoration involves much more than protecting our rivers from pollution and neglect. Some measures may be as simple as rainwater harvesting or more complex, like room for the river and daylighting of streams that involves the government machinery. She talks about the various nature based solutions like retention and detention ponds, upstream grassland plantations, and others adopted worldwide for the restoration of rivers. She emphasizes that responsible governance and implementation of effective nature based solutions are necessary to restore our rivers for future generations.
So I'm here today to talk about nature-based solutions for river restoration or river management as we see the state of rivers around us. I've been fortunate to actually see uh, some of these initiatives at work at different places in the world. Some I've read about, some I've been told by the experts who are working on them. I guess there are two ways of looking at it. One is actually the study and doing those nature-based solutions on the field. But the other part, a very important part, is actually studying and understanding what is going to happen with the river. And this is completely done when people study rivers. Our problem, though India has been talking so much about rivers for thousands of years, our problem is we do not have a single study course or any outline of what do rivers do, what do rivers mean, what do they need, and how to clean them. I think understanding the pulse of the river is very important, especially in the times of climate change. So let's start with first thing, which is flood forecasting. We have been dismal in flood forecasting. Central Water Commission stations, there are hardly very few stations which forecast the level of floods that are coming from the upstream. And this has led to massive problems in the Himalayan states as well as in Maharashtra during the 2019 floods. So studying rivers, forecasting of the imminent dangers is one way to look at it. Then is understanding a river. Why do rivers meander? Till the time we do not know, we do not understand why rivers meander, we'll be in places where river gets channelized more and more. And in India, the recent trend is not river restoration, but riverfront development, which I'm sorry to say includes only building real estate on the banks of the river. And the easiest way is to channelize and to shorten the width of the river. Let's start at the things that I saw from the origin. So at the origin, which is known as the headwaters, typically start from mountainous regions. For example, Pune's headwaters start from the parts of Sahyadri, Western Ghats at Pune's west. If the headwaters are protected, it does two things. One is it does not allow silt to reach the reservoirs, which are very important to us because they've been built by paying huge economic as well as social costs. New York has an extensive mountain range called Catskill Mountains, and headwater protection is taken very seriously. And this headwater protection actually means giving incentives to the residents there for protecting the green cover on their lands. In Pune, we have Panshet, Varasgaon, Temghar, Khadakwasla. On the upstream of Panshet is very destitute, poor farmers who live there. They sometimes even practice slash and burn agriculture. Because that is their option. There's so much of migration there, old people live there, they have their own way of life. We expect them not to cut their forests for our water quality. But what are we giving them? So payment for ecological services and protecting headwaters has been the backbone of Catskill, Delaware water system, through which New York till this date does not have a filtration system for its water. It saves billions of dollars on this. As we come down from the headwaters to a rural riparian area. Riparian area is extremely important, not only for water quality, but also for regulating floods. Riparian area also provides a great habitat for other organisms, which increase the value of a river. You know, river is so many things, it's not just water for us. In these riparian patches, what I've seen in different places is, for example, Vermont has actually an easement agreement with the farmers to protect a part of their riparian belt from grazing and other pressures. This can be very effective for rivers like Pavana and Indrayani, which have intact riparian area right now. This is the time when the blue lines, which are intact, should be protected. There have to be systems in place so that this riparian area is protected, not only through, completely saying that this is a no development zone, you are not supposed to touch it. We have to work with people who own that part of land. Only then can it be sustainable. So after payment for ecological and protecting the headwaters, we come to protecting the riparian edges of the rivers as it enters urban areas. Once a river enters an urban area, its problems increase manifold, like we've seen in India. One of the main problems is floods. We have a system of dams in the upstream. So in that sense, Pune is very vulnerable. Now, if that dam management is not working properly, if we do not know when they're going to release floods, if they release floods suddenly like they do throughout the state and also in the country, then we are in a problem because we have sudden floods, and we do have sudden floods. So dam management has to be more democratic and open, accountable. We need to know the flood curves and the rule curves of the existing reservoirs. When Houston had the Hurricane Harvey and many reservoirs like Addicts and Barkers opened their gates and flooded residents, they had multiple suits filed on them. They were held accountable. I think it's not only the techniques, but also the governance system that we need to emulate from the other countries. In the upstream of reservoirs, there can be things like prairie grasses, which increase the flood absorption capacity of the reservoir. It's not that the water is going anywhere, but because of the prairie or the grassland in the upstream of the reservoir, the water absorbs and then is slowly released in the reservoir. So we get water for a longer time. When a river comes to urban areas, one of the major problems, as we said, is flooding, flash flooding. For this, I've seen in even highly densely populated areas, like European cities are not like American cities. They are pretty densely populated. But even there, they are sort of tired fighting with the river. And what they're doing is making overpass channels, giving room for the river. I've seen this in a river called Wal, which is one of the mouths of Rhine, the mighty Rhine. The reason why they're doing it is because, like Brahmaputra, it's very difficult to control Brahmaputra's floods. It is a very complicated system. Like our cities, it is very difficult to control the floods if we are going to have extreme weather events. So Room for the River is a system which is gaining acceptance worldwide now. We do have spaces for that. What we need to implement is not to give building permissions by encroaching the rivers. How difficult can it be? And why can we not hold the building department in PMC responsible for giving those permissions? And why can't we take them out? It is a question of life and safety. So Room for the River is one of the very important initiatives. Then it's daylighting of streams. What does daylighting mean? It's a very beautiful word. Daylighting means showing the light of the day to those streams which are buried and put in pipes. Pune is right now devising a system to put all its rivulets and rivers inside pipes. The problem is with these pipes, the pipe has a volume, a set volume. But with increasing weather events, we have much more flood than that coming in. That means the pipe cannot carry that stormwater. The stormwater backs up, opens up, and increases the flood peak in urban areas, like we've seen so many times, manholes spouting out water. And because we cannot see a river or a rivulet there, people are also safe. They don't even know there's a river there. So daylighting stream is actually taking them out from their confines and giving them space to flood so that they calm down and the urban peak is reduced. The next very important technique is a Spawn City, which China had developed. In Spawn City or in Smart City, the principles are to intercept rainfall when it falls on the roof by green roof, harvest that rainwater, then have bioswales. So in parking lots, in huge parking lots, you have swales or depressions as the contour of the land goes to actually absorb the water in that area. Through this, then we have bioswales, then we have retention and detention ponds where flood is retained and detained for some point of time. Rain gardens throughout the road which is not completely asphalted, but there is a patch of there are different layers of soil in the rain garden which absorbs more and more water as it comes. All of this decreases the pressure on the stormwater system of the city. The uniqueness of urban floods is that there is a flood peak. So there is a very short time when the water levels rise spectacularly, like we saw in some of our rivulets, especially Ambilodha, where more than 30 people lost their lives in a city like Pune. It's very difficult to imagine or believe that. These are because we have very high flood peaks during these flood times, and our duty is to cut those flood peaks. And by doing this, we can. When I talked with the city engineer about one of Nala treatments and I talked about rainwater harvesting, he told me, no, Nala treatment doesn't have anything to do with rainwater harvesting. It is completely wrong. Urban floods, urban rivers have a lot to do and everything to do with what we are doing in the catchment. And this catchment includes your homes too. And so we need to have these integrated systems which are incentivized by the municipal corporation by giving tax incentives. This is happening very routinely around the world, not very difficult to happen in India. The problem is governance. Do we have a watershed department in Pune? We do not have a river department, forget a watershed department. So apart from techniques, in governance, we need to have concentrated governance on watershed flood management and river management in Pune, which is held responsible by the people around them. After that, we come to channelization, the burning question of the day. What does a channel do? A channel constricts a river, but a river meanders. Why does a river meander? When you run down from a hill, you can't run down straight. You have to run by taking, winding ways. Why do we do that? Because that's the way energy is dissipated. We'll fall down if we go like this. So if a river flows like this, she'll erode because the energy is too high, the velocity will be too high. That's why rivers meander. Actually, if we look at a meander channel of a river, it carries much more flood water than a straight channel can. Meandering is a natural form of flood regulation. In Pune, in the riverfront development plan for Pune, for the 44 kilometers of Pune city, one of the biggest things that they're doing is to have embankments to actually narrow the width of a river and to have 3 reservoirs right in the middle of the city, one of which even qualifies a large dam. Do we know what that large dam behind Garware College, what will be the inundation of that large dam? Do we know what will happen to the flood levels of the river when there is floods from the upstream? Because we have bad dam management, we have extreme weather events, and we now have a narrow river. And is riverfront development really the only solution for Pune's river problems? There are several river restoration projects worldwide where channels and meanders are being recreated, like the Kissimmee River in Florida. The LA River Master Plan, the Los Angeles River, which was a very, very tragic, which still is a very tragic river. You cannot differentiate the river from a canal in Los Angeles, but they are also trying to restore their rivers by including people in the discussions. As the river meets the sea, we have oysters, kalve and shimple. We all love them, very tasty food. These oysters also act as natural flood defenses of a river system. New York is actually introducing oyster beds in the river. At the end of it all, what we need is a state-of-the-art system of studying and understanding, of governing and also implementing along our rivers. This can only be made possible if people like you and me pressurize the system into being more receptive, open and understanding about the rivers. We have to hold the governance accountable and we have to hold ourselves accountable. Nature-based solutions are cheap. So when we looked at nature-based solutions in Dallas, the nature-based stormwater solutions, green stormwater initiative, it is cheaper, faster and more effective than only gray stormwater infrastructure. So there are many options out there. We have to be open, and for that we have to be aware and willing to listen and look at our rivers. Thank you so much.
Rapid urbanization and industrialization led to a high population and thus the generation of a large amount of waste in the twin township of Pimpri-Chinchwad near Pune. In 2022, the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation began a zero waste initiative under which all household waste collected is segregated at the source and processed further at disposal centers. It involves the participation of residents from slums and societies, school children, industries, and women from local self help groups. This initiative demonstrates how community participation at the grassroots level is essential to reduce, reuse, and recycle waste.
This is Pimpri Chinchwad, one of the newest smart cities of India. What was once a barren piece of land on the outskirts of Pune city in Maharashtra has rapidly developed into one of the fastest growing urban towns in the country. Pimpri Chinchwad also happens to be one of the biggest industrial hubs of Asia, home to over 4,000 big and small manufacturing companies. But this growing urbanization has led to a significant increase in the amount of waste generated. Every day, close to 1,200 tons of waste is collected by the Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation. Out of this, 700 tons is dry waste and roughly 500 tons is wet. With a population of nearly 3 million and growing, waste segregation has been a big challenge for the civic authorities.
We were facing issues of segregation, which is source-based segregation, especially in the slum areas. We were doing the IAC, we were doing the entire awareness program, etc. But the results weren't really coming through. PCMC, if you look at the total overall milieu of the population, it's primarily blue-collar people who are working in the industries, almost about 104 slums now.
In 2022, the city's municipal corporation started a unique initiative to combat the problem. They piloted a zero-waste mission at Gauli Mata, one of their slum communities. This meant training nearly 375 families to segregate their dry, wet and hazardous waste. Not an easy task. The civic authorities decided to run it as a community-based ownership project by roping in 10 women from the local self-help group.
काही आम्ही सकाळी डोर ते डोर कचरा घ्यायला प्रत्येकांच्या घरी जातो आणि तिथून मग कलेक्शन करून इथं आणतो आणि इथून मग वेगवेगळा करून मशनीमध्ये सेग्रिगेशन करतो. आमचा रोजचा कचरा 300-350 येतो वल्ला आणि 500-550 सुका येतो, म्हणजे असं प्लॅस्टिक वगैरे येते.
At a disposal center set up close to the community, this waste is then segregated further. The dry waste is collected to be recycled, the wet waste is used to create organic compost, while the hazardous waste is disposed of in an incinerator. This army of women ensures that no waste whatsoever leaves the community unattended. Today, Gauli Mata successfully runs a circular economy of zero waste, but getting here wasn't easy.
एक आम्हाला 2-4 महिने खूप त्रास झाला की म्हणजे प्रत्येकांना समजून सांगणे की कचरा वल्ला सुका वेगळा द्या म्हणून. ज्यावेळेस आम्ही वल्ला सुका कचरा लोकांना सांगायला जायचो घरी, तर ते लोक मला विचारायचे की आम्ही कुठे ठेवणार, आमची 10 बाय 10ची घरं आहेत, तुझ्या घरी आणून टाकू का. मी म्हणायचे माझ्या घरी आणा, म्हणजे जर आपला परिसर स्वच्छ होणार असेल तर ठेवा माझ्या इथं आणून. मी एवढं बी बोलायचे. माझं पण घर 10 बाय 10चंच आहे. इथं झोपडपट्टी असल्यामुळे सगळ्यांची घरं काही मोठी नाहीत, छोटीच घरं आहेत. माझ्या स्वतःच्या घरची पण नाही म्हणत होती पहिले. माझे मिस्टर पण बोले की नाही काम करायचं, असलं काम करणं आपल्या लोकांना चांगलं वाटत नाही. मी बोले नाही की आपण जर काम केलं तर आपला परिसर स्वच्छ राहील. आणि मग माझ्या 7 महिला म्हणजे ह्या ज्या 10 महिला आहेत तर त्यांना सांगितलं तर त्या बोलल्या करूया, स्वच्छतेचं काहीतरी फायदा होईल आपल्याला.
Every woman participating in the zero waste project here gets paid 10,000 rupees monthly by the civic corporation. The success at Gauli Mata has now encouraged the municipal office to scale this up to 7 more communities with a similar demographic.
They are doing something which is good and something which is quote unquote honorable and not something which is to be looked down upon. Also the positive result has been that it's resulted in livelihood for these ladies. It has resulted in a steady stream of income from them. It has also resulted into a cleaner slum. It has resulted into a more segregated waste coming out of the slums and also helping our gardens from the waste that gets generated. We've also converted the manure that gets generated through our Harit brand, and we are also selling that brand in 1 kg, 2 kg, 5 kg bags as well.
Even as the municipal corporation is looking to widen the scope of the zero waste project across the city, one woman has already been leading the way for sustainable waste management across PCMC's municipal schools. Archana More is a social worker who has been training the students and staff of 7 municipal schools across Pimpri Chinchwad on the concept of zero waste management for more than a year now. Upon realizing that none of these schools practiced source segregation, she took the onus, starting out on her own and going from school to school, explaining what it really meant to be a zero waste school community.
पिंपरी चिंचवड शहर में 300-350 कचरा कुंड थे, तो कुंड ऐसे थे, चौक में थे, तो कुछ स्कूल के बाजू में थे, तो ये कचरा कुंड हटाने का काम उन्होंने किया। तभी कचरा कुंड हटाने के बाद लोग वहीं पे कचरा लाके डालते थे। जहाँ जहाँ स्कूल में गई और स्कूल में देख रही थी, तो फिर बाद में मुझे ऐसा लगा कि ये तो स्कूल का भी कचरा है जो बाहर ही जा रहा है, यानी कचरे की गाड़ी इतना रेगुलर नहीं आती थी और छोटे छोटे बस्ती में तो कचरा की गाड़ी घुसती भी नहीं। तो फिर बाद में जैसे मैं स्कूल में भी गए तो क्लास में भी कचरा था, ये दरवाजे के पीछे ऐसा कचरा रहता था। तो फिर बाद में इसको कचरे को घर यानी गार्बेज एरिया ऐसे मैंने स्कूल में एक सेटअप किया, फिर वो गार्बेज एरिया बना दिया और मैम गार्बेज एरिया भी ऐसा बना दिया कि वहाँ भी अवेयरनेस हो जाए कि गीला कचरा, सूखा कचरा और घातक कचरा कौन सा है। और फिर बाद में बच्चों को मैंने पढ़ाना चालू किया कि देखो ये सूखा कचरा है, ये प्लास्टिक है, ये बड़े तौर पे ऊपर कैसे जमा रखे।
To pique curiosity and engagement levels amongst children, devising fun interventions has worked well for Archana, like creating this monster bottle to collect plastic waste.
Okay, what is the written plastic, kachra, ethane, taka? Means what?
We want to put plastic in that box.
Why do you think I should put plastic in this? What's wrong? I can just put it somewhere. Yes, Avishkar?
We can recycle
Recycle.
and new.
Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you, Sudha.
An instant hit among students, they now practice the same routine at home, collecting plastic and bringing it back to school for recycling.
Whenever I eat chips, biscuits, so instead of throwing them in the dustbin, I remember that Archana Didi told that we don't have to throw it in the dustbin, we have to throw it in this monster bottle. So then I told my mom that like this, our teacher means Archana Didi told us like we don't have to throw this in the dustbin instead of throwing it in, so we have to put it in the monster bottle. Instead of using plastic bottle and plastic tiffins, we use steel bottle and steel tiffins, and this rule is for everyone in the school.
जे आपलं नैसर्गिक आहे, जी खतं आहेत, याचा जर आपण वापर केला तर आपल्याला चांगल्या प्रकारे झाडांची सुद्धा वाढ होते, त्यांना आवश्यक असणारे सगळे घटक मिळतात आणि आपला कचराच तयार होत नाही.
With the help of the municipal authorities, Archana has also got compost pits built inside schools to recycle wet waste. Amongst them is the municipal school in Mohannagar that was recently awarded the cleanest school in the city.
माझ्या शाळेत जी झाडं आहेत, ह्या झाडांचा सुका ओला कचरा, पाना पाचोळा खाली पडतो, हे आम्ही सगळे मिळून उचलतो, आमचे सफाई कर्मचारी मदत करतात आणि उचलल्यानंतर आम्ही कंपोस्ट बिन संकल्पना राबवलेली आहे. त्या कंपोस्ट बिनमध्ये आम्ही एकत्र करतो आणि केल्यानंतर काही कालावधीनंतर त्याचं असं सेंद्रिय खत तयार होतं की नैसर्गिक खत हे कधीही चांगलं आरोग्याला असतं, हे मुलांना आम्ही समजून देतो, मुलंही त्याप्रमाणे काळजी घेतात आणि मग आम्ही आमच्या शाळेमध्ये 2 परसबागा निर्माण केलेल्या आहेत. या परसबागेमध्ये वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारच्या फळभाज्या आहेत, पालेभाज्या आहेत आणि पालेभाज्या, फळभाज्या आणि फुलांची झाडं आहेत.
Over the last 2 years, the Park Royal Housing Society in the residential neighborhood of Pimpri Chinchwad has been adjudged a 5-star society. This means every resident here is entitled to property tax benefits up to 10%, all because it is a zero waste society and doesn't send out 99% of its waste into the city.
In terms of the societies, now we are also have gone for zero waste societies, but those numbers are still creeping up. We have declared few incentives also, for example, in our property taxation. If you're processing your wet waste, we are giving 5% incentive in property tax. If it's a zero waste society, we are giving 8% incentive. If it also involves solar, STP and other components, it's up till a 10% incentive that we are giving in property tax.
This residential complex is amongst another 100 in PCMC that practices zero waste, and among 50 that have sewage treatment plants set up inside the complex.
Sewage treatment plant is basically for recycling the water. So the water that comes from the flush for each flat, that gets deposited in the sewage tanks, from where we have a separate process which distills the water and cleans it up, ready for use in the flush tank again. So we have to top up that water with some fresh water, but that is how it works. And that water is used for the flush tanks as well as the gardening purposes. So we don't throw the sewage water outside the society, from any source.
So far, the smart city of Pimpri-Chinchwad has spent 270 crores on sustainable waste segregation and management. But experts believe that for manufacturing hub towns like this one, zero waste can be fully achieved only if industrial waste segregation is prioritized first.
The feasibility really comes from 2-3 other ways in the way in which we make policies. For example, what is facilitative of industry? Okay? And if one begins to charge industry that it holds the primary responsibility of also not only segregating its waste but also the safe disposal of its waste, then the costs, where does one build those in? So we begin with the industry, which becomes the core, and then we need to move to these residential areas, the schools, the hospitals. All of this is important.
Amita Bhide is a professor of sustainable urban policy and governance. On the zero waste model at Pimpri-Chinchwad, she points out how a shift in cultural mindsets on the responsibility of waste is a big step for the city.
By considering waste management as a fully municipal category, as a property of the municipality, from which there is a slow transition which is happening to think of waste as also a societal responsibility, where all generators of waste are also responsible for waste management. I think that is the slow transition which one sees happening in Indian cities, which is positive. And I see the developments in Pimpri-Chinchwad as very much in line with this slow transition. So beginning site to site.
This community-owned and led model of zero waste in the city of Pimpri-Chinchwad has effectively shown that it is possible for every individual to do their bit.
मी सगळीकडे सांगते, उलट मी गावी गेले, माझं गाव वाई महाबळेश्वर आहे, मी तिकडे गेले तरी सांगते लोकांना असा कचरा टाकू नका. आमची झोपडपट्टी असतानाही आम्ही तिथं सगळं व्यवस्थित स्वच्छ केलेलं आहे, आणि शहरात एवढं आपण स्वच्छ करतो तर ग्रामीण भागात पण करू शकतो.
If we follow these rules, it will be very easy for us to survive on the earth wherever we live in our city. So we should tell everyone that follow this. We don't have to throw garbage anywhere on the road. This is very harmful for us and for the creatures too. So in the future, it will be very easy for us. Like there will be no pollution, nothing. So it will be very natural things we can see.
Thanks for watching Eco India. If you like the story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Scroll.in on YouTube.
The holy Ganga is heavily polluted by sewage and industrial waste, but in Uttar Pradesh, where rural areas have practically no proper waste management system, the town of Chunar rose to the challenge. With help from science, education and research, the local government set up non-sewered wastewater treatment plants, which became operational in 2022. Creating awareness among the people and including the urban poor in this pilot project has resulted in a cleaner city. Let's see how Chunar transformed itself into a model town through wastewater management and is doing its bit towards a cleaner Ganga.
From the gullies of Lucknow to the ghats of Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh is a state with many faces and dimensions. Of the state population, 70% live in rural areas. But in recent years, Indian villages have been quickly transforming into urban spaces. This rapid urbanization has been a major challenge for Uttar Pradesh, especially when it comes to wastewater and septage management. Over the past few decades, the health of River Ganga had been substantially affected by the mixing of sewage and household septic waste via open drains ending into the river. But today, a small town located in the Mirzapur district on the banks of Ganga and Jargo is showing Uttar Pradesh how to efficiently manage its septage waste while also questioning its inclusive wastewater management journey. Only 20% of the urban areas in the state are serviced by sewage systems. And when it comes to informal settlements and rural areas, there were no proper waste management systems in place. Without proper systems, the drains were mixed with septage waste and constantly ended up in large water bodies. Experts link pollution in the Ganga and other rivers to India's high rate of waterborne diseases, which kill an estimated 1.5 million children every year in the country.
उसमें क्या होता है कि मेनली बीओडी जो कि जो घरेलू घरों के डोमेस्टिक का सीवर होता है, उसमें लगभग बीओडी 150 से 150 से 200 होता है. इसी तरह सीओडी चूँकि केमिकल वेस्ट होता है जो कि इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया में होता है. सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात है जो फीकल कोलिफॉर्म लगभग 2 लाख के आसपास वहाँ पाए गए जो कि रिवर बॉडी में मिल रहे थे. उसको कंट्रोल करना बहुत ज़रूरी है.
For a steadily growing town like Chunar, the concept of collecting and disposing of septage was a new challenge. The non-sewage sanitation model was an ideal situation. In 2017, the state government decided to take a fecal sludge treatment plant pilot project in Chunar with 10 KLD capacity with the help of National Mission for Clean Ganga.
ये बहुत जगह पे हमारी आबादी एक्सटेंडेड हो रही है और उस विस्तारित क्षेत्र में अगला चरण ये आ रहा है कि कैसे उस जो भी सीवेज उत्पन्न होगा उसको ट्रीट कैसे किया जाए. चुनार भी उसका एक एग्जाम्पल था. भारतवर्ष में पहला था जिसमें एनएमसीजी ने चुनार के लिए फंडिंग की और ये गंगा किनारे का शहर है. योजना के चरण में ये विकल्प सामने आया कि एफएसटीपी के माध्यम से, चूँकि वहाँ पे कुल हम लोग का क्षमता 42,000 लोग ही थे, तो एसटीपी तो उसका विकल्प हो नहीं सकता था. 10 KLD क्षमता के एफएसटीपी का हम लोगों ने वहाँ पे निर्माण कराया.
In 2017, the local government, with the help of Center for Science and Environment, started reaching out to people and started conducting IEC activities to make sure people are sensitized to the importance of collecting and disposing of septage waste properly. They also provided financial aid for the installation of septic tanks in households. Inclusivity was key to the mission. The local government emphasized on bringing urban poor living in informal settlements under the umbrella of waste management, as they realized that even one single broken chain can disrupt the entire system.
लोगों को जोड़ने के लिए हम लोग मोहल्ले मोहल्ले में जा कर के ये बैनर के माध्यम से, पोस्टर के माध्यम से लोगों को समझाए कि भाई ये मल हमारा यदि नाली में जाएगा, नाली से गंगा जी में जाएगा, गंगा जी में हम जा कर के नहाते धोते हैं, पूजा पाठ करते हैं, तो ये गंदगी होती है. और उसके बाद लोगों को आईसी के माध्यम से लोगों को जोड़ने का प्रयास किया गया और काफ़ी लोग जुड़े.
After 5 years of hard work, the Chunar fecal sludge treatment plant was commissioned in September 2022. This marked a new era of systematic septage management in the district. Today, people have the option to call the municipality and request for septic tank cleaning at a marginal cost of 500 rupees per household. The local authorities have also decided to undertake the cleaning of tanks in informal settlements free of cost. But the question arises, how has this initiative impacted Chunar, the people of Chunar and the river Ganga?
पहले तो इस तरह जो टंकी भर जाती थी तो किसी को मिला के जो स्वीपर होते थे उनसे मिला के जो है वो बाल्टी से इस तरह ठेले से ले आकर फेंकते थे और तमाम गंदगी हो जाती थी और उससे तमाम बीमारियां भी फैल रही थी। और अब क्या हुआ है, जो वहाँ पर टैंक बना हुआ है प्लांट, वो आपके नगर पालिका से टैंक आती है, उनके कर्मचारी आते हैं और उसको कायदे सफाई करते हैं, कोई गंदगी भी नहीं होती है, फिर उसको जाकर प्लांट में डाल देते हैं। पहले से बहुत फर्क है।
The fully functioning FSTP is in its early stages in Chunar, but still it has managed to have positive impact on the town. The health and hygiene of the town has improved drastically. By 2022, 51% of fecal sludge and septage were being safely managed, compared to 0% in 2017.
अभी के लिए प्लांट तैयार है और आगे में हम लोग ये सोच रहे हैं इसके सस्टेनेबिलिटी के लिए और इंक्लूसिवनेस के लिए शेड्यूल डिस्लेजिंग होनी चाहिए, जिसमें हर 3 साल पे प्रत्येक घर का सेप्टिक टैंक खाली होगा और ये साइकिल ऐसे चलती रहेगी। और इकोनॉमिक्स की बात देखें तो इस जो सुविधा है डिस्लेजिंग की सुविधा, सभी सेप्टिक टैंक खाली करने की सुविधा, तो ये हम सभी तबके के लोगों को जो सेम बराबर से एक सुविधा देना चाहते हैं।
For Uttar Pradesh, this is just the beginning. There are 62 FSTP and co-treatment plants under construction in 59 cities. They are also shifting their focus on STPs and co-treatment plants in the state as well. Even though Chunar is a role model to follow, much work still needs to be done to truly achieve a sustainable and inclusive sanitation in the state.
We now meet Harsha and Prabha Koda from Chennai in the next video about sustainable homes by the Better India. Considering the depleting groundwater levels in Chennai over the recent few years and the severe human-induced water stress, they show us simple and easy-to-follow methods of rainwater harvesting and vermicomposting that can be replicated in any high-rise apartment complex in our country, thus improving water tables, recycling grey water, reducing waste reaching landfills, and improving soil quality.
Do you think you can save 1 lakh litres of water in just 3 hours? Let's meet the people who made this possible. So let's get straight to the point, sir. How difficult or easy is it to install a rainwater harvesting system in an apartment complex?
So it's easier in apartment complexes because there are fewer lines that come down, and all you need to do is add a valve and a few diversion pipes and it's done. So it's actually simpler to do in high rises than to do in individual houses. So give you in monetary terms, the payback is around 36 months. So in 3 years' time, we would have got back this money, and from the 4th year, all the water that we get is actually saving. It's sometimes very difficult to prove stuff to educated people because we already have knowledge and we process every bit of information and we try to analyze it in our own intelligent ways. It's easier for me to talk to my staff who's like a 10th standard pass or a 12th standard pass or a housekeeping maid or whatever and tell her, you know, this is the simple process. You collect the water, you use the water. It's simple. So when you say that to somebody who has no baggage of knowledge, it's easier to understand. It is actually easier to do in a large apartment complex because the pipelines are small, fewer in number. So it's all centralized. So your entire terrace will have only 4 outlets.
Wait, it doesn't end here. Apart from rainwater harvesting, they also compost their waste organically.
I was looking at the amount of waste that is going out of the apartment. In the apartment complex, doing vermicomposting I thought would make it simpler for the people to understand, people around to understand and then start doing it. So it's not just me alone, it is to involve the entire community into this. Unless and until you empower the staff and the community, they are only going to listen to you for some time. But once they understand the process and get involved in it, they take ownership of the entire process and do it by themselves. See, what we have done in this composting process is the gardener and the other staff involved in gardening, they take the waste and they kind of look through it, sieve through it to see if there's any paper or anything that shouldn't go into the compost bin. Then they put it into one bin, one large bin, they put it. Then we have 4 different bins. It's basically the cement rings. What I'm calling bins is the cement rings. We've constructed 4 small rings and 1 large cement ring. So it gets put into that. So there are 4 bins, so stage by stage composting happens. At the end of the day, probably in about 40 days or so, 30 to 40 days, we get dry good compost, which we use for our garden fertilizer and
It's difficult when you haven't seen something proved. So here we've proved that a couple of these things are possible and in very simple terms, and you can do it yourself. So the process is simple, the ideas are easy. So if you need any guidance on this, we are always there to help you on that.
yeah, it's a part of give and take to nature. You take something, give back something, and you can start today. It's not very difficult at all. It's very simple and we have done it. You can too.
With this film, we have reached the end of the 4th online Ramnadi festival. Thank you so much for joining us this year.